So, how do you make the rules up for a Warhammer 40k custom miniature? Well, I made this Necron miniature my custom new Necron unit, and today I'm going to share how I made the rules up for it. It's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, today I'm very excited to share the rules and the points for my new Necron custom miniature. But why have I made a custom miniature? Well, the answer is easy. I'm bringing the hobby back to my hobby. Now, I've been playing Warhammer 40k since 3rd edition, and I've had a lot of fun with it. But I have to say, whilst 10th edition is a great game, I enjoy it a lot, and it is very balanced, I've also found that from a hobby point of view, it maybe isn't quite that good. I mean, GW are changing things so much. Everything's got dumbed down, everything seems to be the same, and all of the miniatures as well have been dumbed down, with the majority of them being single posed. I'm not saying the miniatures don't look really cool, but it's not like the old days where you had ball and sockets joints and you could move arms around and everything is just fixed. I grew up in an era where you could phone up Games Workshop and you could order any part that you wanted from any model kit. Yes, they used to sell bits. It used to cost me a fortune, but over the years I've done some really cool conversions. Now, I have dabbled over the years with custom units. Games Workshop even released a book called Chapter Approved, which was in those days a yearly update because it took ages for new codices to come out. And in one of those Chapter Approved books, they actually had the rules on making a new unit. It was a lot of fun. It showed you how to allocate points to the rules that you give the models, but it was all about big monsters like gargantuan creatures, and I did a big gargantuan tyrannid once. It was a lot of fun, and I always remember those days, and I've always wanted to have a custom miniature for myself, so I recently went about making it. I think the key thing to a custom unit is to not make it too overpowerful, because if you do, you probably won't play it that much. If you can keep the rules in line with what we currently have, you know, half decent but not too good, then I think you've got more chance of actually playing it more often. Now, I had no idea what the rules was going to be when I built my miniature. In actual fact, the miniature itself took a totally different direction to my initial concept, but that was okay. I ended up with a really cool looking miniature that I was really happy with. Maybe it was a good thing that I didn't have the rules before the miniature, because it didn't limit my creativity when it came to making the model. Once I had the model done, then I started to sort of think about rules. One thing that I wanted for this miniature was to call it Fred, or at least his nickname being Fred. So when I'm playing him in my battle reports, I can refer to him as Fred. I thought that would be fun, but of course, it's not a very Necron-ish name. So I put it out to you guys to help me come up with a proper name for it, and also to get some ideas for some rules for the model. I have to say a massive thank you to everyone who made a comment with their suggestions. I really appreciate it. I took every single suggestion that I had and I put them onto a piece of paper to help me make the rules up for this new miniature. So if you do see any of your ideas in my new model's data card, it could just be one of the words from your idea as a name, then yeah, a massive thank you. Now I also need to do a massive thank you to one of my followers, because he helped me make the data cards, and I've laminated them. I've got a smaller one which fits in perfectly with the actual proper data cards, and I've got a slightly bigger one for this video. Once I had a nice picture, the fluff and the rules done for this new custom miniature, I sent them over to choppers, sluggers and shooters. Yes, he loves his orcs. He's on the 40k Orcs community Facebook page. Check him out there. I'll link up his Instagram as well in the description below, because he's done an awesome job on these cards, which you will see in a minute. He's also done cards for other armies. He's got Necrons, Orcs, Tau, Imperial Titans. He's a really cool guy, and he's very talented when it comes to, well, what I assume he's used, Photoshop. Anyway, enough rambling. Let's get on and have a look at how I made this card. So first of all, I thought the best way to start would be to use another unit's data card as a base. Now, looking at the miniature and the base size that it's on, I thought the closest unit would be the Canoptic Spider. The base size is about right. The miniature is a little bit spiderish. It is also a little bit Scarab Swarm-ish. So I sort of already had a few ideas in the direction of this unit, but I thought the best place to start would be with the Canoptic Spider's data card. Base my stats on that, and also the points. So the plan was to use the Canoptic Spider data card and its points, go through the data card, adjust any of the stats that I want to, and as I'm adjusting the stats, I would then adjust the points of the spider. That way I would end up with a final cost for the unit, and then if the Canoptic Spider points change, let's say it goes up 20 points, then my unit will go up 20 points. So that's the idea. However, before we look at the stats, let's have a look at the name of my new unit. Okay, so with your help, I called him Fredotep the Displacer. I think I really like this name. I used the Displacer from some of the comments that I had, and Fredotep from some other comments that I had, and I combined them. It was the two names that I really liked. Fredotep, of course, can be shortened to Fred, so I have my nickname there. And Displacer was going to be the inspiration to the weapon of this model. More on that in a minute. But yeah, Fredotep the Displacer. Fredotep is a Canoptic Guardian assigned to the front lines to defend the Necron flanks. Equipped with a powerful ancient Displacer Matrix and Displacer Tau, which can be used for both offense and defense. A very small piece of fluff, but I really like it. I think it sums up the miniature. So of course this miniature doesn't have any claws or mandibles to fight with. It just has this energy section at the back, which I'm calling the Displacer Power Matrix. And it uses its Tau to take energy and sort of throw it at its opponents. That's going to be its shooting attacks, and it probably will do the same in close combat. But I was thinking I could use it also to give my unit a special ward as well. So the Displacer Power Matrix is going to give lots of abilities for this miniature. It's going to be its main piece of war gear. Okay, so let's have a look at the stats of this unit. Now, the Canoptic Spider moves 5 inches, and I always knew that my miniature would have to be a faster moving unit than that. I sort of already thought that this miniature would be pretty cool joined with Scarab Swarms. But I also had the thought, well, if I can join Scarab Swarms, that would be fun, but it would mean that I'd only be able to play this unit with Scarab Swarms, and it might limit the playability and how often I want to play this unit. So I thought, well, how about if this unit can join Canoptic Spiders and maybe even Wraiths? Now, all 3 of those units, of course, are Canoptic, so I'm probably going to give this new unit the Canoptic keyword. But not only that, all of those units move 10 inches. So in reality, my model needs to move 10 inches. So I'm going to change the movement from 5 inches to 10 inches, and I'm going to increase the points by 10 points for this new ability. Now next, it's Toughness 7. I've stuck with Toughness 7. A 3+ save, I've stuck with that. 6 wounds, I've stuck with that. Leadership 8. Now of course Fred is going to be a character who's going to be leading units, and most of the Necron characters are leadership 6. So I thought I would change his leadership from leadership 8 to leadership 6 just so it matches like the character stat. So I added an extra 5 points for the change of leadership. OC 2 on the Canoptic Spider, and I thought, well, I could reduce its OC if it's going to be with Scarab Swarms, and one of its abilities, which I haven't talked about yet, is more than likely going to be +1 OC, just to help with those Scarab Swarms. Then he doesn't really need to have OC2. So I reduced the OC by 1 to OC1, and I reduced the points cost by 5 points for dropping that OC. So the main stats line would give me an extra 10 points on top of the Canoptic Spider points. So now we're at 85 points. I then had a look at the ranged weapons, and I came up with the name of the Displacer Power Matrix Beam for this. So as I said, his Tau is going to take some energy from the Power Matrix and throw it at my enemy. So looking at the Canoptic Spider, the range is 18 inches. I kept that the same. The attacks are D6, and it is a blast weapon. Now, first of all, I was thinking I'd keep the blast. I decided not to have the blast weapon because, as a character, I just wanted him to have more fixed stats. So I gave him 4 attacks and took the blast weapon ability off, rather than a D6 attacks. So what I did is I took 10 points away for removing the blast weapon, and I added 5 points for changing the weapon from D6 to a fixed 4 attacks. So effectively I'm -5 for the weapon change. Of course, blast weapons give you an extra attack for each 5 models in the units that you're targeting. And then, of course, the D6 amount of attacks can be worse or better than a fixed 4, but the fixed 4, I just felt I wanted that for this miniature. So, -5 points for that. I did decide to keep the devastating side of the weapon, so no change for that because the Spider already has devastating. I added some AP to the gun because the Spider's gun is AP 0, so I made it AP 1, an extra 5 points. And then I changed the damage from damage 1 to damage 2, which I thought was fairly big of a change, so I added an extra 10 points for that. So overall for the gun, it's an additional 10 points on top of the Spider points. So now we're at 95 points for this model. Okay, so let's have a look at melee weapons next. And I've called this the Displacer Power Matrix Arc. So again, the model is going to be using its Tau, taking some energy from the Power Matrix, and then sort of, well, showering the enemy with this energy. The special abilities of the Canoptic Spider's weapon, there aren't any, but I wanted a special ability for my model. It's a character who's going to be joining Canoptic Scarabs, that's the one, and of course Scarabs have the lethal ability, so I thought it'd be pretty cool if my model had lethal as well. So I gave it lethal, and I made that an extra 5 points for that ability. I then changed the weapon skill 4 on the Spider. I wanted mine to have weapon skill 3. So I added an extra 10 points for the weapon skill change. Now the weapon strength on a Spider is 8, and whilst that's great, I thought it didn't really match my model that well to be so powerful. So I made it strength 6, and from that change I reduced the points by 10 points. So all in all, my melee weapon was an extra 5 points, and that takes the unit up to 100 points. Now in terms of abilities, of course, the Canoptic Spider can regenerate Scarabs after they die, and I could have kept that ability because this unit is going to be joining Scarabs. However, I may want this unit joining other units as well, where the ability would be useless. So I came up with the Displacer Power Matrix Shield, and this would give the units that I join, each model in the unit, +1 OC. I think this ability is perfect for a character that would be leading a unit of Scarab Swarms, +1 OC. Of course, they're normally OC 0. I think that would be a lot of fun to play and very usable. And if I do join this unit to other units, then +1 OC, it's good, but it's not too powerful. For example, some of the suggestions that I had would be +1 weapon skill on Scarabs when I join that unit. But then if I have +1 to weapon skill ability and I join Wraiths or Spiders, that may make them too powerful, especially when you combine them with some of the detachment abilities. So I decided to add 10 points to my units for the Displacer Power Matrix abilities. I thought that was fair. Takes my model up to 110 points. I then looked at some of the more basic stuff for this model. So of course, core ability, it's going to be a leader, and I decided I would like this unit to lead Spiders, Scarabs or Wraiths. It would make it far more playable than if I just locked it into Scarabs. So I've got lots of options when playing this model. He keeps, of course, Reanimation Protocol. It's going to be a Necron after all, and it's going to be Canoptic. It's going to be a character, of course, and as there's only one of them, it's going to be an epic hero. Now, when I made my model, I said I had no intention of making it a fly miniature. It's not a fly model that I wanted. However, if you look at Spiders, Scarabs and Wraiths, they all have the fly ability. So it makes sense that my model also flies. So I've given it the fly keyword. So now I had to give it the final keyword, and all 3 units that it joins had a different keyword: vehicle, swarms or beasts. I had a good think about this because I wasn't really sure what to do, and in the end I came up with a bit of a quirky rule, but I think it works quite well. So this model is going to have the adaptive power matrix. So it's going to start with the keyword of monster. So if it's not leading a unit, it will be a monster, which makes it playable by itself without leading a unit. And then it has the ability of adaptive power matrix, which I'm going to read for you. So this is the rule. If this unit leads another unit, it will lose the monster keyword in exchange for the following keywords, depending on the unit it leads. It will keep the exchanged keyword until the end of the game. Canoptic Scarabs, Swarms, Canoptic Wraiths, Beasts, Canoptic Spiders, Vehicles. So we're going to match its keyword to the unit that it joins, and if it doesn't join a unit, then it's going to be a monster. And I thought that was really, really cool. Now, to make the unit more playable as a monster, as a single creature, I also wanted it to have an extra ability just to help with the playability of it. So I gave it Scouts 9 inches. I felt I had to add some points on for this adaptive power matrix ability, so I added an extra 10 points on. That made the unit 120 points, 45 points more than a Canoptic Spider. Now, Freddy's done. I'm really happy with how this data card has come out because I don't feel it's too overpowered. The abilities aren't too complicated. It basically only has one ability, and that's +1 OC to the unit that it joins. It can join Scarabs, Spiders and Wraiths, so I've got lots of ways to play it, and I can use it just as a standard model by itself if I want to. Having that Scouts 9 inches just makes him a little bit more playable that way, because of course he doesn't have an invulnerable save, so playing him independently, you're going to want to get him moving fairly quickly. I think his ranged weapon is not over the top, 18 inches, 4 shots. It's okay, and I think he's okay in close combat. Not overpowered, but not underpowered. I think it's about right for 120 points. I'm really happy with him. As I said, if the Canoptic Spider data card goes up 20 points, for example, then I will put my model up 20 points. It's how it's going to work. I'm really liking it. I would love to know what you think of the rules that I've come up with. Too powerful, not too powerful, just about right. Any changes that you would make, let me know in the comments box below. In the meantime, I'm very excited to have an opportunity to play this model on the table, and I've got 4 ways to play it, which is what I love about this unit, because some characters, they only join a particular unit, so they're only usable with a particular unit. This unit is very usable in lots of different scenarios. Of course, it is a Canoptic unit, so he works well in the Canoptic court, but he also could work quite well in things like the Awakened Dynasty. Okay, so that is it. I look forward to reading your comments. If you want to see me build this miniature, then here is a video for you to watch. And if you want to see me paint this miniature, then here's another video for you to watch.